Hi, and welcome back to the Road to Learn React add-on, where I go over the book, go through different examples in the book, and kind of answer, maybe fill in some of the gaps that the original author might have missed, or just to expand on what he might have said. So, with that said, last week we talked about JSX, and JSX, as I've said before, is just a way to have HTML and JavaScript in one. It's actually really awesome, especially when it comes to React. React uses JSX, and you can do a lot of cool stuff with it. Okay, so today we're going to talk about lists in React. That's what Robin felt like should be the next topic. And so before we get into that, let's take a look at the example we have so far. We have JSX right here. We have, and we don't really need this element. I just use this as for demonstration purposes. So let's get rid of this element and get rid of calling on it. And let's get rid of this stuff too right here. So all we have is just this app component, app.js. It's inside source that displays. It's supposed to display a title ID and a title, but obviously these two don't exist yet. So let's get let's get rid of that as well. Okay, so all we have is just this. And from here, we're going to add a list. Where are we going to add the list? Well, it's not going to be inside the return statement right here. This is where the rendering is. This is the view part of React. It's this top part. That's the component part. Component setup part. Okay, so here we're going to create a list, and the list is going to be, we're going to save it to a constant. We're going to call it list because why not? And it's going to be an array. In fact, it's going to be an array of objects. So it's going to look like this, a bunch of objects in there. Obviously, these objects are empty, and we're going to place some objects in there. So we're going to place stuff like title. And that's going to be a string, something like React. It's going to have URL, and it's going to be a string again, and so on. So you get the idea. So I'm not going to type all that out. I'm actually going to just grab the code from the code sandbox that Robin has listed in the book. So he has a link to this, and let me show you how this looks. He has a link to this, so I recommend that in the book. Click on the link and pull up the code to follow along. So I'm just going to copy the list part. So this part right here. Okay. Title, URL, author, num comments, points, and object ID. This is supposed to emulate a database call, but more about that later. Usually this kind of stuff you usually get from some sort of API call. But for now, we're just hard coding it. That's all we're doing. Okay, simple enough, right? Just a list that we saved to a constant. So let's say we wanted to display it though. We wanted to display it on our page. So how do we do that? Well, let me pull up the book real quick and see what the next part of, what the next step is here. So under search, so right here, Robin included an HR, which is just a line, and then he wanted to render the list right here. Like you want to show the list item on the page, right? So you can say show list items here. All right, simple enough, right? So how do we show it? Well, we can use a built-in function. What is list? It's an array. If you look right here, that first character right here, the square bracket, that tells you it's an array. So what can you do with arrays? Well, a bunch of things. One of them is, oops, not that. One of them is a map. You can do you can map over a list. So we're going to do that. We're going to map over a list. So it's going to look like this. It's JS. It's obviously JavaScript, so we have to put the curly braces, and it's the name of the constant, map, and then a function that where item here in this case represents each individual object. So item, the first time it runs is this, then it's this. What do we want to do with that? Well, we want to display the content, right? So let me see. Okay, so how do we display the content? Well, we just return. What do we just return the JSX that we want to see for each item. We want to return some sort of div, right? So return div, and then the div requires a key, and Robin talks about that. Each item, whenever you do a map or you iterate over items and you're displaying a bunch of them, like you're listing a bunch of items, React would like you to provide a key for each item. In this case, the key is the object ID, which is specified right here. For now, you don't worry too much about it. Just know that it requires, or it doesn't require, it's recommended that you have a key, maybe even highly recommended, because React will always complain saying that if you don't have this, it will say, hey, we recommend that you include some keys. Okay, so now we put a span element inside of it. Inside of the span is going to be an A element, and then another span element. You get the idea. I think you guys can somewhat follow along, right? So the point is we have a div, a span, and then each one has some information. This is the parent directory. Then this span has an A element, a link that has, and here for the href part we have the item.url and then the item title for the actual content of the link, and then we're displaying the author, num comments, and so on. Okay, cool. All right, so then we're closing the div. Let's see. Let's make sure we close it correctly. So we close the div. Then we're closing. What are we closing? This return statement. Then we're closing everything else. Very important. These little things matter a lot. These curly braces, parentheses. Please pay attention to these. Every character matters. I cannot stress that enough when you're a new developer. I know it's easy to just, haste through it, but I highly recommend that you don't do that and you pay attention to every character. And I think I got it all, but I could be wrong. So let's just find out if this looks okay. So do you guys remember how to run React? It's just npm start. Make sure you're in the right directory. Another small thing that I definitely recommend that you guys pay attention to. All right, so that's pulling up the page in a different browser, a different screen. Let me pull it over right here. Okay, there's that search label. There's a search box, and then these are the items, 2 items. All right, cool. And I think that is it. He has listed a few links that I would check out. Let me see. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything else. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. The only other thing is that he says don't use the index here, maybe. Like there's a way to just put index here, and then the function would have two arguments, index. So he said don't do that. And that's just because that will mess up. Like each ID will not be unique to each object. This is the only way it's guaranteed to be unique, as long as these IDs are unique. Okay, so let's put this back. Okay, all right guys, this is it. Please don't forget to subscribe, spread the word regarding this class or the series, YouTube series on the road to React. And I would love to answer some questions, so feel free to comment or reach out to me directly. Otherwise, talk to you next time. Take care.